It was just another Thursday evening at our home on the outskirts of the sprawling city. Tom and I had slipped into our familiar routines. He lounged on the couch with a beer in hand, unwinding after a long day at his auto repair shop, while I, Nora, sat at the dining table, my eyes glued to my laptop as I tracked the latest trends in stocks and cryptocurrency. Our cozy two-story house, once a symbol of our hopes for family and future, now felt more like a battleground, reflecting the widening rift in our lives. "How was the market today?" Tom asked, his tone casual but tinged with an underlying tension. It had become our new normal. "Same as always, ups and downs. Crypto's looking good though," I replied, attempting to maintain the peace. He scoffed, setting his beer down with a little too much force. "Crypto again? You know not everything that glitters is gold." I sighed, closing my laptop and bracing for yet another round of our well-worn argument. "Not every car that comes into your shop is worth fixing, but you do it anyway because you see the value in it." "Why can't you see the value in what I'm doing?" "Because cars are real, Nora. You can touch them, fix them, sell them. What you're doing, throwing our money to the wind and hoping it comes back with more, is just reckless." A familiar anger bubbled up within me. "Reckless? It's not reckless, Tom. It's calculated. There's a difference between gambling and investing." He stood up, pacing the room. "Calculated? You call putting our hard-earned money into something as volatile as cryptocurrency calculated?" "Yes, I do. I don't go in blind. I research, I study trends, I make informed decisions. It's no different from what you do with your shop." "My shop is a sure thing, Nora. People always need car repairs. But this is just a phase. What happens when it crashes, huh? What then? We could lose money on any investment, Tom. The shop could falter. Nothing is guaranteed. But we've seen good returns on my investments. Isn't that worth something?" He stopped pacing, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "It's not just about the money, Nora. It's about security. We shouldn't risk everything on a damn coin flip. Why can't we invest more in the shop, expand it? That's a real, tangible way to grow our money." "Are you suggesting we put all our eggs in one basket? What if something happens to the shop?" "Diversification is key. That's investing 101. He shook his head, the gap between our perspectives widening even further. "Sure, diversification, but into something stable, not this digital fairy dust." I stood up, feeling the need to defend my choices and my independence. "You know, for someone who runs his own business, you're surprisingly close-minded. And you're surprisingly stubborn." He shot back. "All I'm saying is we could be using that money to build something lasting, something we can see and touch, not just numbers on a screen." The conversation was going nowhere, as it often did. "Let's just agree to disagree, okay? I won't criticize how you run your shop if you don't criticize my investments," I stated firmly. Tom sighed, the fight visibly draining from him. "Fine, but just remember, Nora, when all this blows up in your face, don't say I didn't warn you." The tension between us wasn't the only strain in our lives. His family dynamics added another layer of complexity. Living close to his parents and sister meant frequent interactions, each one serving as a reminder of our differing views on family and responsibility. It was a Sunday afternoon when Tom suggested we visit his parents. The idea alone made my stomach knot. It wasn't his parents I minded, it was Sarah, his sister. Her lifestyle and choices were a constant source of bewilderment for me. "Come on, Nora, it's been ages since we've seen them, and Mom's been asking about you. Besides, Dad is fighting cancer," Tom pressed, noticing my hesitation. "Yeah, I bet Sarah's missed me too," I muttered, my sarcasm not lost on him. "Look, I know you two don't see eye to eye, but can't you just, I don't know, try for me?" Sighing, I finally agreed. "Fine, but I'm not staying if she starts on one of her shopping spree stories." When we arrived, we found Sarah already there, flaunting her latest designer bag. The air of superiority she exuded was like a heavy perfume, instantly grating on my nerves. "Look at this. Just got it yesterday. Isn't it fabulous?" she gushed, barely acknowledging our presence. "It's something," I managed to say, biding my time. Tom's mother, oblivious to the tension, ushered us inside. "Nora, dear, so glad you could make it. You two should visit more often." The afternoon dragged on, with Sarah dominating the conversation as she recounted her latest vacation and shopping exploits. I struggled to keep a neutral expression, engaging only in minimal conversation, but my patience was wearing thin. "So, Nora, still playing with your stocks and bits?" Sarah sneered, her tone dripping with disdain. It's called investing, Sarah. You should try it sometime instead of blowing your money on things you don't need. I shot back, my annoyance finally breaking through. Tom shot me a warning look, but it was too late. Investing. Please. Like gambling on the internet is anything to brag about. At least when I spend my money, I have something to show for it. I shot back, unable to hold my tongue. Something to show until it goes out of fashion next season. That's enough, both of you, Tom's father interjected, his tone stern. We're here to enjoy each other's company, not to argue about whatever this is. The rest of the visit passed in an uncomfortable silence. As we left, Tom couldn't contain his frustration any longer. Nora, why do you have to provoke her? Can't you just let it go for one afternoon? Me provoke her? She's the one who started it with her snide remarks. I'm not just going to sit there and take it, Tom. Sometimes I wish you'd try a little harder for the sake of peace. Try harder. I'm not the one splurging on luxuries and flaunting them in everyone's face. Why doesn't anyone tell her to stop acting like a spoiled brat? Because she's family, Nora. We look out for each other, even if we don't always agree with what they're doing. That's just it, Tom. Looking out for each other is one thing, but enabling bad behavior is another. There's a difference, and it's about time someone pointed it out to her. Tom sighed, weariness evident in his voice. I know, but what can we do? She's set in her ways, and Mom and Dad aren't going to change how they treat her. It's not just about Sarah, Tom. It's about us too. How are we supposed to plan for our future when there's always going to be this financial black hole in your family? We'll figure it out, Nora. We always do. Then the news hit us like a freight train. Tom's dad, Mr. Harrison, had lost his battle with cancer. It felt surreal. One moment, we were discussing treatment options, and the next, we were plunged into mourning. Amidst the shock and grief, Sarah took charge of the funeral arrangements. It wasn't long before she dropped a bombshell on us about the cost. Sitting in our living room, it felt like a storm cloud had settled over Tom's head as he relayed what Sarah had told him. Nora, Sarah says the funeral is going to cost $60,000. She's expecting us to chip in half. I nearly choked on my tea. $60,000? That's insane. Are we funding a funeral or a royal wedding here? Tom's face darkened, his eyes narrowing. Now's not the time, Nora. This isn't about the money. It's about giving my dad the send-off he deserves. But $60,000? There has to be a mistake. It's too much. Tom's voice rose and I could see the vein in his forehead beginning to pulse. My dad has just died, Nora, and here you are haggling over pennies. What's wrong with you? I flinched at his harshness. I'm not haggling, Tom. I'm just shocked. We never even spent that kind of money on our own house. Tom stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You know what? I don't need this. I don't need you telling me what's too much for my own father's funeral. If you can't see past your damn spreadsheets for once, maybe you should just stay out of it. The hurt from his words cut deep, but I swallowed my retort. This was grief talking, not my Tom. I'm sorry, Tom. I'll transfer the $30,000 to Sarah. This is a lot to process. Tom paced the room, hands buried in his hair, a gesture of frustration I'd come to recognize over the years. Yeah, well, it's not just about the money, Nora. It's about doing right by him. And if that means paying whatever it costs, then so be it. When I confirmed the transfer to Sarah, Tom barely acknowledged it, lost in his own world of grief and anger. The distance between us felt like miles, not just the few feet of our living room as we walked into the funeral agency. I felt the weight of the world pressing down on my shoulders. The last few days had been a blur of grief and confusion, but nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to learn. I'm here for Mr. Harrison's funeral, I announced to the woman behind the counter, striving to keep my voice steady. She looked up from her computer, her expression filled with regret. I'm sorry, ma'am, but you're a day late. Mr. Harrison was cremated yesterday. My heart stopped. What? But how? I was told the funeral was today. She shook her head gently, her eyes brimming with sympathy. The family requested to move the date forward. I'm very sorry for your loss and for the confusion. I stood there, dumbfounded, my mind racing. How could Tom not tell me? Why had I been left in the dark about such a significant change? Fuming, I dialed Tom's number, my fingers trembling with anger and disbelief. Tom, why the hell didn't you tell me the funeral was moved? I just showed up like an idiot, only to find out I missed everything. His voice was cold and detached. Because I didn't think you cared, Nora. All you've done is complain about the costs and question every decision. Why would I think you'd want to be there? Because he was my father and Ma. Because I'm your wife? How could you just exclude me like that? My voice cracked, a mix of hurt and fury bubbling to the surface. Well, maybe not for long, he shot back, bitterness seeping through the phone. What's that supposed to mean? My heart sank. I'm done, Nora. I can't do this anymore. I can't be with someone who is so indifferent. You're more concerned with your bitcoins and shares than with this family. I've got the divorce papers ready. His words hit me like a slap in the face. Divorce? Was he serious? You're kidding, right? Over this? Tom, we can talk about it. We can work things out. No, Nora, it's too late. The house is going up for sale. We'll split everything and go our separate ways. That was it. I was speechless, the reality crashing down on me. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be. Stunned, I wandered back to the parking lot just as Sarah pulled in, driving a brand new luxury car. The sight made my blood boil. Nice car, Sarah. Where'd you get the money for this? Inheritance, she replied, her smile failing to reach her eyes as she tossed her hair back. Yeah, something like that. Dad left me a little something. The casual way she mentioned her father, coupled with the shopping bags in her hands and the absence of any sadness on her face, was infuriating. A little something, huh? Looks like morning is treating you pretty well. Her smile faded, replaced by a smirk. Well, we all grieve in our own ways, don't we? Some of us invest in stocks and some of us invest in cars. I clenched my fists, the injustice burning inside me. This was all wrong. Tom and I were falling apart, and here was Sarah, benefiting from the chaos. Enjoy the car, Sarah. Looks like it costs a pretty penny, or should I say a pretty dollar. She laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in the empty parking lot. Oh, Nora, always so concerned about the money. Don't worry, it's all been taken care of. I watched her walk away, her laughter lingering in the air like a bitter reminder. The man I loved wanted nothing to do with me or the family, and the world felt like it was crumbling around me. I had tried to be a part of everything, but the reality of it all was showing their true colors. The days following the funeral felt like navigating through a thick fog of disbelief and betrayal. The weight of the divorce papers in my bag felt like a boulder, a constant reminder of my crumbling marriage. Yet the sight of Sarah's new luxury car planted a seed of suspicion that I couldn't shake. Determined to get to the bottom of it, I decided to visit the funeral home, hoping to uncover some answers. As I walked through the door, a mix of suspicion and resolve fueled my steps. It felt surreal to be here under these circumstances, but I needed clarity. The place was quiet, the air thick with solemnity fitting for its purpose. At the reception desk, I recognized a familiar face from my past, Jackie, a high school classmate who had ended up in this unexpected role. Jackie, I exclaimed, perhaps a bit too loudly for this somber setting. I didn't know you worked here. She looked up, surprise flashing across her face before recognition took hold. Nora? Wow, it's been ages. What brings you here? Is there something I can help with? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation ahead. Yeah, actually, it's about my father-in-law's funeral. I heard it was arranged here. Jackie's expression shifted to a more professional demeanor, though curiosity still sparkled in her eyes. Sure, let me pull up the details. Give me a sec. As she typed away, I fidgeted, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on me. When she found the record, her brows furrowed. Okay, here it is. The service was pretty standard. Cremation was requested. They kept things simple. The total came to $5,000. My heart sank. $5,000? But that's not what we were told. We paid $60,000, or at least we were led to believe that's what it cost. Jackie paused, concern etching her features. That's a huge difference. It was Sarah who handled the arrangements, right? Everything here was billed at $5,000. No more, she confirmed, and the pieces began to fit together, forming the picture I did want to see. Can you print me a copy of that bill? I need proof, I requested, my voice barely steady. Sure thing, Jackie replied, her tone sympathetic. She quickly printed out a duplicate of the check and handed it to me. Holding the paper felt like clutching a piece of a puzzle that would unravel a larger deception. Thanks, Jackie. I've got to sort this out. Armed with the printout from the funeral home, my next stop was confronting the family, particularly Sarah. The air felt heavy as I drove to my mother-in-law's house, where I knew they'd all be gathered, probably discussing the estate and the aftermath of the funeral. My stomach churned with a mix of dread and determination. When I arrived, the house was eerily quiet. I hesitated at the door, gathering my courage before stepping inside. The sound of my footsteps echoed through the hallway, announcing my arrival. In the living room, Tom, Sarah, and my mother-in-law sat together, looking like a picture of mourning that was about to be shattered. My mother-in-law, her eyes shadowed with grief, broke the silence first. "Dear, we missed you yesterday at the funeral. We thought you'd be there." Taking a deep breath, I replied, "I was told it was today. I'm so sorry for your loss." My voice remained steady despite the turmoil inside me. Then I turned to Tom. "Can we talk in private?" I hoped to spare his mother any more distress. Tom's response sliced through the room. "No secrets here. You're not part of this family anymore." His words stung, but I pressed on, pulling out the check from the funeral home. "Then explain this to me. The funeral cost $5,000, not the $60,000 Sarah claimed. Where did the rest go?" Tom looked genuinely shocked, turning to Sarah with a bewildered expression. "What's this about?" Sarah squirmed under our scrutiny. "I needed the money," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. The revelation hung heavy in the air until my mother-in-law, overhearing, added, "Your father saved for his own farewell. I even gave Sarah an additional $10,000 to cover everything." Doing the math out loud, I felt the tension rising. That's $70,000 total and only $5,000 spent. "Sarah, where's the rest?" Flustered, Sarah confessed she had splurged the money on a new car for herself, her gaze darting away from mine, unable to meet my eyes. I expected Tom to explode, but instead, he gently told her, "You shouldn't have done that. Be more careful next time." His response floored me. "Careful? She committed fraud, Tom. And you're okay with that?" Tom's justification left me reeling. "You wouldn't understand. You have no family. You don't get what it means to stick together." That was the last straw. In front of them both, I signed the divorce papers with a flourish. "Sarah, you owe me $30,000. Pay up, or I'm going to the police." Tom's protests followed me out the door, but I didn't look back. I had seen enough and heard enough. The betrayal was complete, and so was my resolve. As I walked away, the finality of my actions settled in. There was no going back, only forward, away from the lies and deceit that had tainted what I once believed to be family. Packing my life into boxes felt surreal, as if I were an observer in my own story. The for sale sign outside the house starkly reminded me of the finality of it all. By afternoon, I was settling into a small apartment that felt more like a fresh start than a downgrade. That evening, as I sorted through the remnants of my past life, my phone rang. Tom's name flashed on the screen, a name I no longer felt attached to. I answered, curiosity edging out resentment. "Nora, you need to back off, Sarah." Tom's voice came through, tinged with an uncharacteristic harshness. "Back off," I laughed, cold and sharp. "Not a chance. She took from me, and I want back. Your sister is a thief." Tom fell silent for a moment. "She's family. You wouldn't understand." "Family?" I scoffed. "That ship has sailed, Tom. As far as I'm concerned, you and your sister are just people I used to know." He tried to argue, but I cut him off. "Save it. Sarah has 2 weeks to return my money, or I'm pressing charges. And you stay out of it. You're nothing to me now." Hanging up, I felt a mix of sadness and liberation. The man I once loved was now just another obstacle in my path to reclaiming my life. 2 weeks later, a knock at my door heralded the return of my $30,000. Sarah stood there, her posture defiant, a smirk playing on her lips. "Here's your money," she spat, thrusting an envelope into my hands. "Happy now, you money-grubbing witch." I took the envelope, my gaze steady. "It's not about the money, Sarah. It's about principle, about not letting you walk all over people." She laughed, hollow and bitter. "Whatever helps you sleep at night." As she turned to leave, I called out, "Just remember, Sarah, karma's a real pain. What goes around comes around." Closing the door, I leaned against it, the envelope heavy in my hand. The money was a small victory, but the real triumph was standing up for myself, refusing to be a victim of their greed and lies. Life had found a new rhythm, calmer and more predictable. Then, out of the blue, my phone rang, displaying a number I hadn't seen in a while. It was Tom, a voice from a past I had neatly folded away. "Hey, I need a favor." "A big one?" Tom's voice sounded more worn than I remembered. I paused, the suddenness of the call throwing me off. "A favor. Tom, we're past favors, don't you think? It's Sarah. She's in deep this time. Debt's up to her eyeballs, and the wolves are at the door. We've sold everything. The house, the shop. It's still not enough. His words took a moment to sink in. And you're calling me? I'm not part of the circus anymore, Tom. He sighed, desperation seeping through his voice. Come on, don't be like that. You got out and made it big with your trading. Can't you spare something for old time's sake? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything, he still saw me as a lifeline for their mess. Spare something for her after she nearly ruined us with her lies? You've got some nerve, Tom. It's not just for her. It's for all of us. You wouldn't be where you're without me. Don't forget that, he countered, bitterness lacing his tone. A laugh escaped me, sharp and short. Where I am is despite you, not because of you. You think I owe you. That's rich. Silence filled the line, heavy and uncomfortable. So that's it then. You're going to turn your back on us. Us? There is no us, Tom. There hasn't been for a long time. And as for turning my back, I think you've got me confused with someone who still cares. Hanging up, I felt a mix of emotions, anger, yes, but also relief. That chapter of my life was truly closed now. Sitting in the living room of my new house, a place I had earned with my sweat and smarts, I realized how far I had come. This was my sanctuary, built not on the shaky grounds of deceit and manipulation but on my resilience and hard work.